Today, I have the pleasure to talk to Gerri Gold. She's the Chief Operating Officer for HPE Financial Services. Gerri, it's great you could make some time in your busy schedule today. And I think these times are rather very challenging basically for everybody, but specifically for business leaders, and particularly, I think, the CFO. And you speak frequently with many of them. Can you also share some of your top concerns that they are dealing with nowadays?
Thanks, Ronald. First of all, it's great to be here. Yeah, you are absolutely right. I spend a lot of time talking to our colleagues within the organization who are with customers, and I also spend a lot of time with customers understanding the challenges that they're going through right now. And the CFO in particular, they're really in an interesting time, and boy, they have quite the pressure on them. And I would say while there are a number of challenges that they're focused on, there are three that keep coming to mind for me. The first one is all about running the business. And really when it's about running the business, it's really about having liquidity or cash flow. And while that sounds like the basics, it is. It's the basics of what Maslow's hierarchy of needs is all about: food, clothing, and shelter. It's not so easy in this time where you have companies that are sheltered in, where you have customers who are no longer buying things, or if they are buying, they may not be able to pay on time. You have suppliers shifting. So cash flow and liquidity, and how do you maximize that, is the number one priority. Now, once businesses and CFOs get through that, what I've really seen them focus on is all the business risks, all the new risks and business risks there are. There are financial risks, as I already talked about, operational risks, and even business model risks that are happening overnight. Think about this. Overnight, most companies went from employees being either in the office or out with customers to now working from home, as we're doing right now. And that changes all the risks around security, around IT, et cetera. And then my third one, and the one I like the most, and the one that I think is the most fun, is where CFOs are now beginning to start to look at, once they have the basics underway, how do I relook at what's the new normal going to bring?
Mm-hmm.
How do I think about rebounding after recovery, and what does that mean I need to start to invest in and do differently, and what are those various scenarios for rebounding? And so that's, to me, where that starts to play in, thinking about how do I need to invest and move forward.
And this rebounding really gives opportunities. But on the other hand, you mentioned already cash is very important. How does this impact the life of a CIO? And are the budgets good for them, or are the companies really investing right now?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. I just, saw a study recently that talked about the majority of CFOs looking at how do they reduce investments. And of course, they're going to have to reduce some level of investments, or at least rethink all of them, right? But to think about cutting IT, that would not be something we would recommend. Think about this overnight, whether it was because of companies that were, as I said, work with employees working from home, or if it's about companies who had to immediately go into online mode. They needed to make some tactical decisions around IT to shore up a lot of their platform. But that was just the tactical discussion. If you think about the companies that have really risen to the occasion through all of this, it's those that have been online and been able to work effectively online. So those who've already accelerated and started their digital transformation, to me, what this says is digital transformation is more important than ever. And the key is, how do we accelerate that, but do it within the constraints of what the CFO is asking for? And quite frankly, they're going to be asking for some constraints. And that's where I believe you can bring in a number of new financial and investment techniques that, quite frankly, help you create cash and expand your budget.
And if you talk to these organizations, what type of advice do you give them to manage themselves through this crisis? And also, on the other hand, to be ready for all the opportunities that are coming already?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, the reality of it is, what I would suggest is, first thing they do is they align with experts, people who have gone through this, who know this, who create financial solutions that can really help them through this kind of time, not only to maximize their budget for today, but to ensure that they can still go on their digital transformation. One of the things that we've been seeing a lot of is I've been hearing from many customers who've never before been working with us from a financing perspective. They mostly acquired their IT by paying cash and then depreciating it over time. But the reality of it is they can't afford to do that anymore. So they're looking for help on what they can do differently moving forward to keep the momentum and to keep the investments going. And I'll just throw out a few of the kind of techniques that I am seeing a lot of people start to use and a lot of CFOs be very interested in, as well as CIOs. One is leveraging certified pre-owned, where you need quickly to get equipment in existing platforms, and you can do it in a very inexpensive way so it doesn't impact your digital transformation dollars that you might still have available. The second area that I'm seeing a lot of customers look at is especially CFOs who they want to be able to try things, but they also don't want to have to make long-term commitments. In this type of day and age going through this pandemic, it's about flexibility. So financial solutions that can give you flexibility that you're not committed for a long period of time. So one of the last techniques that we've seen a lot of is really as customers moving to as a service or a subscription, where we can scale up and down their expenses, and it's an alignment to their usage and to the revenue that they're bringing in. So these are all great techniques that we are seeing customers look at in various forms.
Very helpful tips. And you are talking about creating cash a couple of times already. And that's interesting, I think, for both the CFO and the CIO. Can you elaborate on this?
Oh, yeah. When you think about it, most customers have been for years acquiring technology. They purchase it outright, and as I mentioned, they then depreciate it. So they have a significant investment on their balance sheet of IT equipment. Now, most people don't take the time to realize that that investment still has value. And what we've been able to do for our customers, just to give you an example, over the past 2 years is to convert that investment, monetize it into cash. We've been able to infuse over $624 million back into customers' budgets over the past 2 years. And we do that one of two ways. We buy their equipment and literally pay them for the equipment that has value, and they will then use that to help expand their budget. Or if they are still using equipment and they're still needing to work that equipment, and what we are able to do is to untrap that capital by converting it into a usage model. And between the two techniques of buying equipment where they don't need it any longer, or where they do need it, converting it into a usage model, we're able to literally give customers cash. It's kind of like having their cake and eat it too, and expand their budget.
And to make this a little bit more concrete, do you have some success stories that you can share with us where you helped organizations through this challenging time?
I have a lot of them. It's actually been kind of fun and really inspirational to see how we've been able to work with customers who overnight need to make these changes, either to get their workforce up and running or to be online for their customers. And what I have seen, especially in verticals like healthcare, food and retail, and communications, there's been a real need of taking all of these techniques together. But in particular, I've seen an acceleration of certified pre-owned, because in all of these cases, customers have had to expand their capacity virtually overnight. So for example, we recently worked with a UK-based food retailer who was really running out of capacity because everybody is now doing all of their food ordering online. And within days, we were virtually able to replicate their system, bring in certified pre-owned, and ensure that there was no stoppage and no downtime in their system. And it's a great story and an important one for all of us who are ordering our food online. We've done something very similar for a hospital in Austria. And then finally, I'd say, one really interesting example is one with a broadcasting company in the US that had acquired a company right during this time. And we were able to not only leverage certified pre-owned, but then immediately put them onto this as a service usage model so that they were able to get up and running in this acquisition and then be able to pay expanding, paying in accordance with the revenue so that their expenses and revenue are aligned. So just 3 examples that have happened within the past few weeks.
3 spot on cases. Gerri, it was a real pleasure talking to you. And I think the audience will really love your insights. I think it's very helpful. Thank you. And for the audience, thank you for watching.
Thank you so much. It's been great being with you.